Good afternoon, everybody. How are you guys? It's a daytime show. This feels a little weird. Feels a little formal. Usually we'd go late at night. But I was wondering, I looked at my YouTube analytics and it said that most of my audience is online between 2 p.m. and 8 p.m. So I was like, well, let's just see, cast out the net and see who we can get in the daytime. So welcome Slowway Whiteboard, welcome Sabrina, welcome Dr. Crispy Rothschild. Thank you so much for coming. What are you saying? Jim Bob wants to send his chat. Okay, yeah, send Jim Bob's chat. I like that show. Oh, and Patrick did a really good show last night. I don't know how we're connected this month. We're kind of doing all of the same topics. He was talking about Freemasonry and I was talking about Freemasonry. Last night he did a show on sex bots and I've been covering that for at least a couple years, I think. We did a show on InfoWars last year covering this book, Rise of the Sex Bots. And this is a big part of my live talk that Jay and I do when we travel. We've done it in Nashville, we did it in Austin, we did it in LA, we did it in Orlando. And definitely sex bots are going to be a thing in the near future. I also did 2 shows on Rockfin about sex bots. What was it called? It was this book, Rise of the Sex Machines, and it was also the biography of Anton LaVey, which has a whole chapter in there about animatronics because he was obsessed with mannequins and robots and synthoid type people. And he actually had a whole dungeon. Anton LaVey had a whole underground basement in his house in San Francisco that was set up like a speakeasy, like an old-timey bar, and he had mannequins like posed as patrons of this place, and he would go down there. I forgot what it was called. Den of Iniquity, that's what he called it. Somebody says, Slowway Wiper $5. Jim Bob will forward his watchers over here if you allow raids in settings. Okay, how do I do that? I'll allow it. You have my permission. I don't know what button I need to click. Honestly, I'm a terrible computer person. I am worse than boomer tech. I'm more like silent generation tech. I spend as little amount of time touching these devices as possible. So if you can tell me how to allow raids, I will do it. Thank you for the donut chat link. If you can send me a donut, that would be fun. Here you go. If you can't send money donuts, you can just send me a donut emoji, and that makes me smile just as much. So thank you for the $5, and let me know how do I allow a raid from Jim Bomb. I welcome all of his people. Tell me what they were talking about today. Maybe we can segue into what we're going to talk about today, which is sorcery. This is going to be another installment of Defense Against the Dark Arts. Last time it was zone theory, so we talked about all of the cringy things that I used to buy into. Some woo-woo, some not, some science-based, some, what is that word? Noetic science-based. Jason Scholl gave me a dozen donut emojis. Thank you so much. Someone liked my sweater. I saw that. Sprinkles. That's what Jay calls it. The sprinkle sweater. Welcome Jay Hankins. Welcome Jason. Who else is here? Technographics. What's up, man? Thank you for coming. Kings and Queens. Yeah, he was with us last night when we were talking about Anton LaVey and his Den of Iniquity, where he preferred to hang out with synthetic people rather than the real thing. And that's what you're going to find in Satanism, in sorcery, in black magic. is that it is just the inversion of goodness. And it always makes me laugh. I always think of, that one part in Mean Girls where she's like, why are you so obsessed with me? And that's kind of how, as a Christian, you view Satanists, because they cannot create anything original. All they can do is invert something good and turn it into evil. So last time we were talking about the pentagram and Pythagoras and the mystery schools, and lots of good did come out of, Pythagorean mathematics. You've got a squared plus b squared equals c squared. You've got the basis for the Western music tones. You've got the phi ratio. So it's like discovering God's worlds, but then you attribute the creation to something else, or just to chance or random mathematics, which sounds kind of silly to me. Okay, Slowboy says $5 YouTube Studio. Settings, community, automated filters, allow live redirects. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this on live. YouTube Studio. Settings. Where's the settings? Channel level settings. Pop out dashboard. YouTube Studio. Maybe I can get Jay in here. Hey, babe! Can you help me? I'm going to get him to help me real fast so we can get Jim Bob's stream. They're saying Jim Bob can forward his people over to my stream if I do this.
Are you live now?
Yeah.
I don't know how to do that.
Oh, well, it says YouTube Studio Settings Community.
Okay, go there.
I don't know where settings is.
Mm-hmm.
So, would it be here?
Pull up another page and then open that and go to your settings in your community.
Okay. Going to YouTube.
Go into your studio and then settings.
Bear with me 1 minute, guys. We're going to see if we can get this to work. So I open a new tab. I'm on my page.
Go to your studio.
View your channel.
Studio.
Or YouTube Studio. Okay, there.
Okay, community.
Smoke them if you got them, guys. This is going to take like 2 minutes.
Community.
Okay. Comments, copyright, settings, dashboard content, comments, customization, settings. I don't see the community. See my channel.
Let me see if I can find it.
Okay, he's gonna work on that and we're gonna figure it out. But until then, you like my hairpin? That's cute, thank you. My hair has been a brat today. Actually, I'm just gonna... YouTube settings. Yeah, my hair is not... it's its own creature. It does what it wants every day. I don't think I've ever had the same hairstyle twice, just because it's not curly, it's not wavy, it's whirly. So doing my hair is just more of a negotiation. And if it's something too involved, it'll just fall out. So gotta treat it like a little animal or something.
Settings, community, allow channels to direct.
Okay.
Right. Settings is at the bottom.
Settings. Here.
Community.
Community. I'm doing it. Hold on. Okay.
Allow, and then hit save.
Where do you see allow?
Right here. All channels can redirect my content.
Hidden users. Live redirects. All channels can redirect to my content. I did it.
Hit save.
Save.
You gotta save.
I did it, guys. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm ready to receive Jim Bob's folks. Welcome. We're talking about sorcery. I just did something hard. Not really, but we are ready to receive. And Jay helped me. He's always a big help on the tech stuff because I hate it. You see an Alex Jones books on the shelf? Yeah. We pretty much got everybody up there. Sabrina says my husband would just say move and do it. He would, but he's not camera ready right now, so he's gotta clean up. So we are ready for Jim Bob's people. We are talking about sex bots, talking about sorcery, and these things go together like, bread and butter. Talking about corn. We're talking about black magic is the inversion of white magic, and these sex bots is the inversion of real love and intimacy. So let's just get right into it. So we were talking about the pentagram, and so now the Averse pentagram is the classic symbol of Satanism. It's the classic symbol of inversion. It is, last time we talked about how in the upright pentagram, the head is pointing up towards God, and then you have the 2 feet, and the 2 arms is the 5 points of the pentagram. So in this version, the Averse pentagram, it will be pointing down with the goat's head. So the 2 horns of the goat are pointing up, defying heaven. And the letters around this particular one, I think it spells out Leviathan. Let's see if I'm correct on that. Tech Norris sends $4.99. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. I appreciate your modding. It says there are 4 women that I actually enjoy listening to online. Yourself, Rachel Wilson, Whitney Webb, and Melissa Dykes. That is all. Well, thank you. I'm happy to be in that prestigious group. I like all those women. Very smart ladies. Someone says, I think many will fall for robot love, and it will tie in nicely to the worsening of daily life, the collapse of services, sex is fighting, it is the set up nicely. Yeah. And so what Patrick was talking about last night and what I talk about in my live talk that I've done over the past couple years is that these sex bots are just going to be your nanny, your prison guard in your 15-minute coom state, and it's going to be worse than Alexa or Siri or anything. It's going to spy on you, it's going to nanny you, it's going to restrict you, it's going to be hooked up to the Internet of Things, so it can control your television watching, it can control your refrigerator. Probably in the future, what it looks like what they want to happen is like every aspect of your natural life, even your bodily functions, are going to be controlled and monitored. And so if you think that, your wife is a nag or your husband is controlling, just wait until you get a robot and it's going to be 1,000 times worse. Push me and then just touch me so I can get my satisfaction. Yeah, we were going to do a stream about, Jay and I were going to do a movie stream about robot love. So we've got Cherry 9000, we've got Ex Machina, a movie called Wife Like. There's a whole bunch on the list. I think that's a really poignant topic for right now. I think that would go over really well. But coming up the very next time, we're going to do creepy kids movies. So that should be pretty weird to watch, especially, what one did we just do? Oh, Secret of Nim. That was really weird. Remember that one? Yes, your robo lover will control your bodily functions. Guys, it's getting weird. So the simulacra, just the whole fakeness of robo love is purely satanic. It's purely sorcery. And if we did talk a little bit about sorcery when me and Paul did the stream about Fantasia, Walt Disney and Fantasia. So if you want to look at that, it's pretty good breakdown of the Sorcerer's Apprentice, which Mickey Mouse is. And Technor says, welcome all of those who came from Jim Bob's channel. Yep. Thank you. If you want to give me a like, go ahead. If you want to subscribe, you're not going to miss out because this is a channel for smart people. Old Jim Bob says, I'm going to confess that I feel very woo-woo when I say it, but I can't help but feel there's a great battle going on between good and evil. Robot lovers are not good things, in my opinion. Exactly. They're bad boys. They're not good boys. So, back when I was studying magic, of course, everyone has to read Manly P. Hall, right? That's kind of like Esoteric 101. If you've never heard of Manly P. Hall, go look him up. He is a big authority on esoteric topics. He has a whole school in Los Angeles called the Philosophical Research Society. He's not a Christian or anything like that, but if you're looking for just straight esoteric commentary on books, he is one of the best. I think the story goes that he knew so much about Masonry that they made him an honorary Mason because he knew a lot of the secrets of the order. He had a very interesting life. He was a mystic, so we don't adhere to his mystic Christianity teachings or anything like that, but he is very good just as a cursory overview of mystery schools and esoteric spaghetti. And I think, yeah, this picture is actually one of his artworks, so we're going to be talking about Mephistopheles in a second, and the Sorcerer and the Sorcerer's Apprentice. So let's get back to the Averse pentagram. That's what it's called. So it says made by Jim Bob, and their viewers just joined. Welcome, guys. Talking about magic and sorcery. The notes that I am taking today are from this first book that I wrote in 2010 called Weird Stuff Operation Culture Creation. I don't sell this one anymore. That's why I'm just gonna go over it with y'all because this was before I was properly catechized in the Orthodox Church, and I had a lot of zone theory going on in my head. I had a lot of The Secret going on. What the bleep do we know? Law of attraction, manifestation, which that is making a big comeback right now. So all you manifesting boys and girls, I will see you on the other side when you find out that it is all doo-doo. Technography says, I'm manly pee-pee in the poo-poo hall. Exactly, yeah. Years ago, I read the entirety of the large book of Secret Teachings of All Ages. By the end, I was convinced that the ideology was Gheyer than a $3 bill. That is part of it. Someday, when you're older, I think we're going to talk about Tunnels of Typhon. But I don't think y'all are ready for that, and that will probably be on Rockfin anyways. So, what's going on, Crispy? Sorcery is what's going on. So, Manly P. Hall, he would say that the black magician cannot use the symbols of white magic without bringing down upon himself the forces of white magic, which would be fatal to his schemes. He must therefore distort the hierograms so that they typify the occult fact that he himself is distorting the principles for which the symbols stand. Black magic is not a fundamental art, it is the misuse of an art. Therefore, it has no symbols of its own, it merely takes the emblematic figures of white magic and by inverting and reversing them signifies that it is left-handed. So yeah, that's partially true. Satanists are obsessed with Christians and obsessed with inverting their theology and their symbols to make it dark and left-handed. If you don't know what that means, the left-hand path in Kabbalah is the path of black magic, of selfishness, of sorcery. The right hand path is white magic, altruism, stuff like that. In my personal worldview, after I've been through catechism and joined the Orthodox Church, all of it is black magic because it's going against Christianity. I've got some crowns. I've got some donuts. This is really fun. Okay, so I like the stars in the crystal ball, slow boy. Yeah, keep it coming. I like seeing this colorful chat room. Got strawberries. What else? What the bleep do we know is popular with the academics? Yeah, I know. And that even became a book, and then it had a sequel called Down the Rabbit Hole. Now, I don't remember what Down the Rabbit Hole was, but I thought that was an interesting choice to name the documentary. So, what's up, guys? Like, subscribe. Let me check the donut basket here, see if we've got anything. We're talking about pentagrams. Oh, I did get one. Okay, $10 from PV. Thank you, Mrs. Hanshaw Dyer. Your sweater today is too cute, and a million donuts. Well, thank you for all those donuts. Everyone likes this sweater. It's really funny. TikTok made me buy it. It showed it to me about 10,000 times before I actually broke down and bought it. It's from Marine Layer, a store in Nashville, so that's where you can go if you love it. So we're talking about Manly P. Hall, we're talking about black magic, Aver's pentagram. All magic, in my opinion, is under the umbrella of sorcery, coming from Satanism. As Orthodox Christians, we are opposed to it, so I am not condoning the practice of ceremonial magic, Kabbalah, Hermeticism. I'm not trying to roll all of these up and make it into a mystic Christian thing like I used to do. I have spit on Satan and given up all of these thoughts of magic and Kabbalah and stuff like that. So I'm a reformed nerd, reformed magic nerd, Hogwarts dropout, and we are talking about black magic. We've got a nice afternoon crowd, and I'm seeing lots of donuts and rainbows, and I love it. So back to Aver's pentagram. In symbolism, an inverted figure represents a distorted power. So they're saying that the reason black magic works is because it draws a fundamental power source while at the same time perverting it. One of the most commonly practiced ceremonies in LaVey's Satanism, remember the guy who loves mannequins, is the Black Mass, which incorporates an inverted cross and a pentagram and a dark priest and a nun and a nude woman is the altar. So there is your LaVey again. He thought that sex bots would be bigger than Ford Motors Company, and he was heavily investing. So this was like his passion project. Animatronics, robotoids, fake people, and sex bots he thought would make him richer than Ford Motors. He died before it could become a thing, but he actually admired Walt Disney for introducing animatronics to kids, you know, like when they used to go to Disneyland, the Hall of Presidents, and you've got your Robo Abe Lincoln and George Washington and all those guys. So Anton LaVey thought that this was a wonderful introduction for kids to get used to being around robotic people. So the pentagram, the Aver's pentagram, I should say, is used extensively in black magic, but it always is different in one of three ways. By having 2 points up, by elongating the points to various lengths. So this is so important because when we talk about corporate logos, okay, we've done a lot of, in the past, work about identifying corporate logos and their Freemasonic meaning or their magical meaning or their hermetic meaning. But when you see a corporate logo that has a pentagram and it is distorted, this is going to be signifying black magic. So what am I thinking of? Lockheed? Where's my phone? I think that has a star that does not have points that converge. Okay, because pentagrams is a symbol of a perfect, beautiful, harmonious, mathematical, geometric shape. There's nothing evil about it. God put these mathematical equations, and the orbit of Venus makes a pentagram. So there's nothing inherently evil. Actually, it is a sign that there's an intelligent creator of the universe. But when you break one of the points or distort it, you are saying that you are going against the perfect harmony of mathematics and geometry. I'm looking up Lockheed right now because I think that's the one that has a distorted pentagram. Yes, it does. Okay. So if you look up the military industrial complex Lockheed Martin logo, I'll show it to you right now. Here we go. So here is a pentagram that the points do not converge, and it is, not mathematically perfect. So it is signifying black magic. Can y'all see that? So they differ in 3 ways: having 2 points up, elongating the points to various lengths, or the star may be broken so that the converging lines do not form a point. So since the pentagram is an example of mathematic and organic perfection, altering it is the desecration of a universal language and would also represent something inorganic or synthetic. What? Right? Soy face. And Slow Boy says, no brain chips. Exactly. Just say no to brain chips. So, black magic is a combination of sacrileges designed to profane the human mind. When the pentagram is averse, it represents mind sinking below the elements, suppressed by the weight of the lower principles and being submerged and conquered by them. If employed in this way, it is for the purpose of crushing the mind of a victim under the weight of the desires of the body. It would be used for the definite purpose of causing one to go insane. Crazy. So Anton LaVey, he would say, in Satanism, the pentagram is also used, but since Satanism represents the carnal instincts of man, or the opposite of spiritual nature, the pentagram is inverted to perfectly accommodate the head of a goat. Its horns representing duality, thrust upwards in defiance, and the other 3 points inverted, or the Trinity denied. So that is where you're going to get your evil machinations happening. And now my laptop's about to die. Hey, babe. My computer's dying. He's my hero.
Say what?
Can you bring me the power cord?
What?
The power cord is dying. Thank you. Technographics says, a boomer at my church tried getting me a job at Lockheed. She tried explaining how great the money would be. I'm sure it would be. Anything military industrial complex, you're gonna get those dollars. You turned it down, huh? Good. I hope you're doing something that makes you happier than working for Lockheed Martin. So this averse pentagram is also known to them as the Star of Set. So Set would be the Egyptian idea of the devil from the desert, the antithesis to the god Horus, and they fought a lot and they had some epic battles. Set is the god of darkness. There is a group called the Temple of Set that came after the Church of Satan that was all about integrating Satanism and technology and military. So I'm sure all of you big brains here that come to my show all the time, you all know who Michael Aquino is. So he would be the founder of the Temple of Set, trying to merge human beings and machines. AI, they talked about a lot. Metropolis, 2001: A Space Odyssey, which I talk about in my live talk a lot. So the Star of Set is often inscribed in a double circle with the head of a goat inside the pentagram. It is called the Sigil of Baphomet. If you don't know who Baphomet is, then what are you doing? What are you even doing? If you want me to do a Baphomet breakdown real quick, I will. But I don't think you guys need that. Someone says, Sorcerers and Robots, a love story would be a great movie title. I know. I thought it was pretty clever. So the Baphomet is the god of the Sabbath of sorcerers. The Baphomet represents a generative fertility of the goat combined with the powers of darkness. There were goat-worshipping cults in ancient Egypt, especially in a town called Mendes. That's why it's called the Goat of Mendes. The Greek name for the ancient city of Dejet, Egypt, was depicted with a goat's face and legs. So then the Greek historian Herodotus wrote that all male goats were held in great reverence by the Mendesians, and in that time and place, women were known to publicly copulate with them. So it's not just robots that we have to worry about stealing our mates. Now it's goats. At several places, the god Pan and a goat were worshipped as gods of generation and fertility. They called them both Mendes. Now, if you've been watching the show on YouTube where I have guests, we just had somebody who is very well versed in Freemasonry named Clint, and he would be sending me a bunch of, let me see if I can find it, stuff about Pan and about Eliphas Levi. Maybe it's so far back here, I don't know. All right, I'll keep looking for it. Goat, ram, yeah, exactly. Dodge ram. So the Hebrew letters in this pentagram that I put in the book, yes, they do form the name Leviathan, which was a sea creature from Hebrew mythology and is a symbol of man's lower nature. So the Pythagoreans would call him Tartaros, literally translated from Greek as pit or void, and said to be where the fallen angels are from. So even in Thelema, the inverted pentagram represents the descent of spirit into matter. Agrippa considered this orientation of the symbol evil because it attracts sinister forces by overturning the natural order of things. It is associated with triumph of matter over spirit and referred to as the goat of lust attacking the heavens with his horns. So there you go. There's your Averse pentagram. Last time we talked about the upright pentagram. And now we're going to talk about Mephistopheles. Can you pronounce that? Remember the old pact with the devil? That is a cornerstone of black magic. So the foundation of this type of sorcery magic is the pact or the contract. It is primarily focused on the art of conjuring up spirits from the lower planes by means of a secret process of ceremonial magic in order to gain their help. Now, I'm thinking of that movie, Ghoulies. Remember that goofy thing? But it actually has a lot of real stuff in it. I think he actually does a real Kabbalistic ritual in Ghoulies. But so they do this and they bring up their little creatures, and the creatures help them out at first, but then, you know, of course, it always goes wrong. The whole gremlins, right? You buy a mogwai, you get a bunch of gremlins. So this is what happens, is that you conjure up these things and then you're supposed to know how to control them, but if you don't, then they're just going to turn back on you. So true black magic is a contract with a spirit where for a time the magician becomes the master of the spirit that he has summoned. So the demon agrees to serve the conjurer for the length of his earthly life, and after death he will become the servant of the demon. The magician would sign the contract with his own blood according to the magic axiom, he controls the soul who controls the blood of another. So we were talking last week about the laws of magic and the laws of contagion and lookalikes are like and those types of things. So when a magician binds an elemental, they call it, to his service, a battle of wits ensues, which the demon eventually wins because he is timeless. And for this reason, the black magic, or the black magician, or the sorcerer will attempt to prolong his life as much as possible. What does this make you think of? Life extension, singularity, Elon-esque, brain chips, uploading your consciousness, what else? Just trying to extend your life as much as possible because you have made so many bad choices and you've made contracts and pacts with ghoulies and goblins, and now you're afraid to die because you don't know what's going to happen because you made all these deals with devils, right? So you have to extend your life. Transhumanism, exactly. Someone says 1980 creepy creature monsters flicks were very esoteric. They were. They were very esoteric. Yeah, so this was the... Oh, and here's Baphomet right in the corner. So you've got your sorcerer conjuring up your little ghoulie Mephistopheles. I like how he has the whole little, like, English ruffle. The sweet cream ruffle around his neck. I don't know where that comes from. But you've also got your Baphomet here in the corner. And if you're looking for more esoteric artworks like this is from The Secret Teachings of All Ages, the fully illustrated one. And see, you see him, he's drawn his circle, he's got his magic sigils, he's got his pentagrams. He thinks that he can control these things, but you can't. And that's what's really funny to me about people who sign contracts or deals with the devil or the Illuminati or whatever. It's like, you know, the devil is the ultimate narcissist. He's always going to renege on promises. He's never going to take care of you like he says he would. You know, I'm glad that all of the nice, kind people of the world are comparing notes and figuring out what narcissistic personality is, because it's the perfect way to describe Satan and Lucifer. So the only way to win is not to engage. So here is the chapter called Sorcerers and Robots, a Love Story. I used to think Terrence McKenna was pretty cool. Yeah, man. Tripping balls, man. Terrence McKenna says, we are caged by our cultural programming. Culture is a mass hallucination, and when you step outside the mass hallucination, you see it for what it's worth. So this is kind of true. What I was aiming to do with this book was convince people that magic is real and it's being used against you. All of these politicians and people that you worship and vote for are actually doing spells on you. Then they came out with the technical term mass formation psychosis, which sounds a lot more reliable and grown up and scientific than there's a spell on you. But I was dedicated to learning magic and to learning sorcery and to lifting the spell off y'all, because I also was learning about monarch mind control and government conspiracies and all that kind of stuff. So this is where that book came from. Don't Let Them Burn says, Ninth Gate was in-your-face occultism. I believe that Johnny Depp is also into the cult. Yeah, Ninth Gate, that was a good example. So was From Hell. Another Johnny Depp, Alan Moore. Thank you for the donuts, Dr. Crispy. I love all you guys. I'm so glad you're here. We're having a lot of fun. Memes are chaos magic. Yeah, man. I had a whole book called The Art of Memetics. Somebody wrote in Austin. I can't remember who it was, but that was at least 15 years ago, talking about meme magic. And a lot of people say that that's how Donald Trump got elected the first time. Remember that whole Pepe Keck meme magic stuff going on back then? So yeah. So back then I was like, do you ever get the feeling that you're surrounded by a population of mindless robot zombies blindly being led through life like sheep and not capable of a single original thought? I think pretty much all of us have thought that at one point, and it's funny because everyone thinks that they're impervious to propaganda and mind control. Even back then, I thought I knew all of, I had a big brain and an open mind, and everyone else was just a mindless zombie, but there's always so much more to it, and to learn that you are not exempt from thought control, right? So maybe you've always felt like an outsider, maybe you've always felt isolated, maybe you've always felt like an anthropologist in your own culture, or maybe you find yourself asking this question from time to time: what is wrong with people? Like, literally, what is wrong? That every time I go on Twitter, that is my thought. Like, I log on, I scroll for a minute, I think, what the is wrong with people? And Jay says, stop scrolling. And so I get off. Or he says, don't just scroll. So I go on, I post my content, and I get off because I'm like, what the F is wrong with you people? But it's because they're under a spell, right? We can't judge them as if they're acting from their own hearts and minds and critical thinking, because they're not. They are literally under a spell of poison from the food, poison from the air, poison from the water, poison from the media, poison from relationships. So we can't be too hard on normies, but when we start to view the world as a spiritual domain, there may be an answer to some of our questions. So if you are studying the occult, you would probably come across Colin Wilson. He's a very prolific writer on magic and occult. He would say, modern civilization induces an attitude of passivity. When a Stone Age hunter set out to trap wild animals, he was aware of his will as a living force. When a modern city dweller walks down a crowded thoroughfare, he feels no sense of challenge or involvement. The city was built by other people. He can go through an ordinary day's work in a state approximating sleep. Most of his routine tasks are carried out by the robot. There is neither the need nor the opportunity to use the will. So we were talking about imagination and will as something to be captured by the sorcerers and used against you. So if you give up your imagination, if you give up your will to them, then you are part of this Borg. You're part of this machine. So these are the two faculties that are most required for the art of magic. And then when rituals are performed, it's the will and the imagination that must both be directed through acutely focused attention towards a desired goal, altering reality to produce a magical act. So this is what's up for grabs. And that's why I showed you that picture last time, is like how to capture your imagination. And that's why Disney calls it Imagineering instead of engineering. So I used to think that, white magic was good, black magic bad. I'm past that. But back then I was thinking, so a magician would, be trying to help people. He would have some kind of super ego operating, collective good in his mind when he is doing spells. In my mind, a magician would be someone who loved humanity. A sorcerer would be someone who wants to enslave. So a magician would be somebody who had no ambition. A sorcerer would have crazy ambition. So the sorcerer, in my mind, being different from the magician, would seek to enforce change in consciousness on a grand scale. He wants to produce a Mass Effect, which isn't that a video game? Mass Effect. He would be the one who's attempting to master command over the laws of nature according to his own will. Even back then, I was thinking, God's will versus individual will, and the struggle between that. And then I even put 2 examples of sorcery. There's old Aleister Crowley looking pretty young, circa 1910. Can you see that? And then old Mickey Mouse as the Sorcerer's Apprentice. So the people that would use ritual magic, sorcery, their philosophy would favor the desires of the few pitted against the good of the many. His obsession would be a quest for private power. Carried to this further extreme, the sorcerer's ambition is to wield supreme authority over the entire universe and to make himself a god. So the driving force behind this black magic is the hunger for private power. Black magic and occult techniques are used for evil ends and the sorcerer's self-aggrandizement. So we were just talking about Michael Aquino a couple minutes ago. There's a quote in here from him. It says that the Satanist, the black magician, does not seek that kind of submergence of the self. We do not seek to have our decisions and our morality validated by any god or higher being. We take responsibility unto ourselves. So Aquino believed that the governing principle of magic is the ability to control people without realizing how or why they are being controlled. And this goes perfectly together with MK Ultra, with Monarch Mind Control. And technology, right? So, witchcraft in this sense is a ceremonial operation with the intent to bewitch someone and serves to fix and confirm the sorcerer's will. So, is this all making sense? Give me some donuts if you're following along. Kingdom Hearts is pure Gnostic trash, Disney and Final Fantasy nonsense. Okay. Technographics says... Passio was a big practitioner of this tactic. Don't Let Them Burn says Doctor Strange in the Marvel Universe is also Aleister Crowley. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Doctor Strange is interesting because we were talking a lot about Tibetan magic and Nazis, and also Tantra and the worship of Kali and sex magic, right? So magic, sorcery, robots, transhumanism, we've got it all going on over here. So even the Magician's Dictionary would say that sorcery is the invocation of the gods to use them to work one's will instead of God's will. And then we have Thelema, which is the Greek word for will. And the Temple of Thelema is based on the Book of the Law by Aleister Crowley. Its philosophy states, do without will shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will. Every man and woman is a star. So I guess we can unpack that right now. We got time. We got till 7 o'clock. That's when Tristan and Jay are going to take over, and they're going to be making you laugh, talking about silly twin flames. And then right after that at 9 o'clock, I have the premiere of me and Benny Wills talking about what happened to the truth movement. So it's going to be Jay and Jamie all day. So do without will shall be the whole of the law. Yeah, you are a god. You do what you want. Everything that you can do to make the universe revolve around you you need to be doing that. That's what every man and woman is a star means. It means a star is a body that has things orbit around it. So you want to, as a occult practitioner of Thelema, you want to be the center of your own universe, basically. Love Under Will is just, we went through this whole thing in Kenneth Grant book on my channel on Rockfin, called Aleister Crowley and the Hidden God. Love Under Will is basically sex without procreation, using the creative life force to produce you Bugattis instead of children, or whatever it is that you are wanting besides reproducing, right? So Crowley, let's just do a little backstory on him because we got time. So he was born in England, 1875. His parents were strict Christians in a cult called the Plymouth Brethren. Crowley is arguably the most infamous magician / sorcerer of all time. It is claimed that as a child, he was so defiant that his own mother nicknamed him the Beast. His father traveled the English countryside preaching the doctrines of a strict fundamentalist group known as the Plymouth Brethren. Aleister's self-proclaimed life's mission was to destroy Christianity and build the religion of Thelema. And this is what we talk about all the time, that Thelema is the hidden religion of Hollywood. We've tracked and mapped that, all the different celebrities with the do what thou wilt and the hand signs and the gestures and just the way that they live their life. The whole rock and roll of the boomer era was all the lyrics. If you listen to them, I can do what I want. Do what you want. It's all about you. Now that you've heard this dictum, go back and listen to a boomer rock and you will see that it is just thinly veiled Thelemic teaching. So Crowley was the 20th century's leading black magician and occultist. He was an agent in British intelligence. He was a poet, a prophet, and he self-proclaimed Beast 666. So he also considered himself a reincarnation of the famous magician Eliphas Levi. I think he also considered himself a reincarnation of Adam Weishaupt. He does consider him a saint in the Thelemic group of saints. So there you go. Adam Weishaupt of the Illuminati is a saint according to Aleister Crowley. Hold on. Donut time. Is it donut time? We haven't even had one song. This is the show where I sing badly and you throw donuts in my mouth to make it stop. Heavy metal. Yep, Dr. Crispy says heavy metal. We can do it. Jethro says reincumination. Yes, exactly. Reincumination. So when Crowley was 28 in 1903, he and his new wife, Rose, took a long honeymoon. So I've talked about this a couple times before. Every magician has to have a woman, a medium, a conduit, because for whatever reason, women are better at communicating with the other side. So a magician is nothing without his female consort, which Crowley had several, and most of them ended up literally in an insane asylum called Colney Hatch. And he would brand their chest with the mark of the beast, which is a circle and an X right between their breasts. And guess who else brands people? That cult, what was it called? Somebody, NXIVM. NXIVM cult would brand. So do the Tater Tot brothers. Were bragging about how they could brand and tattoo their female victims also. So Crowley and his new wife Rose go on this long honeymoon. They go to Egypt and they perform this ritual called Liber Samek in the king's chamber of the Great Pyramid. So then they go back to Cairo in the next spring, and while they're practicing what he called his preliminary invocation ritual, his wife began to say strange things, like, they're waiting for you, and it's all about the child. So he kind of ignored that because she wasn't into magic at all. She's just saying weird stuff because she's the medium. So he ignores that, and then she says that the god Horus was waiting to talk to him and was offended that he had not been invoked yet. So Crowley begins to test his wife, who knew nothing of Egyptology or even who Horus was or Ma or any of those people. He asked her to point out the god whom she was in contact with, and she led him to a museum where she showed him a mortuary stela of Horus in his form of Rahur-Queet. So here, he called it the Stela of Revealing. I have a picture of it right here. His Egyptian stela, and right up here is that circle with the X in it, the mark of the beast. And he was shocked because the exhibit number on the Stela of Revealing was 666. It's just what the museum had labeled this artifact, right? So later they go back to their room, and she starts just spouting out things. So he's like taking dictation from an entity that's called Aiwass. So for an hour, from noon to 1 p.m. on April 8, 9, and 10, Rose channeled Aiwass and dictated the substance of the book, which forms the most important magical document of the Sorcerers' new Aeon, called the Book of the Law. Now, if you guys haven't seen what Aiwass looks like, I'm going to pull it up right now, because he's a cute little creature. Not really. Aiwass looks like a gray alien. And here is Crowley's drawing of this being that is communicating the Book of the Law to Crowley. And actually, I've heard it. Well, Lam and Aiwass are like the same. So this guy is, they also call him Lam, but he's supposed to be a baby coming out of you know where, but like a poop baby. So Aiwass is this poop baby, or Lam. Lam is the Tibetan word for way or path, and Lama is he who goeth, the specific title of the gods of Egypt, the treader of the path. The Buddhistic phraseology and numerical value is 71, the number of this book. So Lam, Aiwass, a gray alien, poop baby. So Aiwass told Crowley that he was especially chosen to establish a new epoch in the evolution of consciousness on this planet, over which the god Horus will preside. And we'll get into the Aeon of Horus a little bit more when we talk about psychology and the king baby. But this is where it all starts. So a full account of this story can be found in 2 of Crowley's books called Confessions and The Equinox of the Gods, Volume 1, Number 7, if you want to learn more about that. Which, there's no point. Just listen to my show and I'll tell you everything you need. No need to go buying books of the law. Technographic says you need a font and back webcam cover, Jamie. Just saying. Technocrats and hackers are usually always creeping. A front and back webcam cover. Okay. I usually just put a sticker on it when I'm not using it. So then during World War I, this all happened in 1903, 1904. During World War I, Crowley transferred his activities to America, where he became the first kind of sensational tabloid celebrity, right? They proclaimed him the wickedest man in the world. He shocked the West by his newspaper accounts of black masses and sex orgies. In the headlines, he was named the King of Depravity. He was obsessed with redheads, and he initiated a large number of women who he called the Scarlet Women and branded them with the mark of the beast, like we just said. So he also spent time in Italy, but he was expelled from there by the government due to suspicion of human sacrifice. It's hard to prove, but I can't say that doesn't make a lot of sense. He does have a couple lines in some of his magic books saying that the best victim is a young boy. Tio Andrea says, "Hi Jamie, it's a bit late here in UK and I have to go to sleep. You have 2 small children, but we'll listen tomorrow." Okay, you tuck in those babies and come back when you can have some adult time. Poop baby bothers me almost as much as calling the body a meat suit. Yeah. Poop baby. Poopy babies. Like Muppet Babies. So here we are talking about the epitome of a sorcerer. Somebody who wants to be wicked, who has aligned themselves with the dark side. His ties with the political elite are facilitated. They did facilitate the propagation of the doctrine of Thelema worldwide. He was recognized by the BBC as the 73rd greatest Briton of all time. Did you know that? So, his influence on popular culture is colossal, whether it's through direct references to his persona. He is everywhere. We have Jay-Z's clothing line saying "do it without will" and Masters of the Craft. He can also be found in weird places like the anime Yu-Gi-Oh!, where one of the characters of the series is named Alistair in honor of him. So now we're talking about culture and how this sorcery, this Satanism, this averse, robotic, synthoid way of living is coming down to us through culture. And this is a little collage I made. It's a guy holding a petri dish, but it's got all of the corporate logos in it. Because that is called, I don't know if you knew that, but that little dish is called the culture media. So, we're defining ourselves with these logos, these attitudes, to create something called a culture, but where does all of that come from? Tavistock Institute, Edward Bernays propaganda. And culture has always been something that revolved around religion up until very recently, or at least ethnicity. So the earliest music, painting, drawing, sculpture, dance, literature were almost all inspired by religious principles, by doctrine, and by rituals. So now this is replacing the sacred. Consumerism is replacing the divine. And in biology, culture is the growth of populations of microbes in an artificial environment, such as a petri dish, known as the culture media. So I just thought that was interesting that the environment itself is artificial. So not only is introducing these sex bots into our lives, introducing the simulacra, but the entire milieu that they are being introduced into is perfect for them because it is already synthetic, right? So by including or excluding particular substances into the media, the scientists can control what cells will and won't develop and what directions these groups will go. And this is exactly how the elite see themselves. This is exactly how the people at the WEF, at the Bilderbergs, all of those groups, they see themselves as the above scientists in a lab just performing experiments on populations. No different from a scientist with microbes in a dish. So by the use of ritual and symbolism, a sorcerer can enchant others and subconsciously conform their will to match his own. So, a pentagram on your shoe or a swastika on your jacket or whatever, these symbols have been manipulated by mystery schools for centuries. And not just corporate logos of like gas stations or whatever, but also we're finding out fashion industry plays a big part in this. Surprise, surprise. We all remember the whole Balenciaga scandal, and Adidas was connected to that. And then, did you know that the founder of Adidas is Adolf Adi Dassler, and the founder of Puma was his brother Rudolf? They were both passionate Nazis, and they manufactured clothes for the Wehrmacht, the Unified Armed Forces of Germany. So, do you even know what it means to put on your Converse every morning? Because by being ignorant of the meaning of certain symbols, we unwittingly participate in a ritual manifesting reality to the whim of the sorcerer. So, why do you think the star is upside down on the Converse? And it even says Converse, which means to invert something, right? Is that what Converse means? All right, guys, we're having fun. We've got a bunch of people here from Jim Bob. Welcome if you've never been here before. Sabrina Fair says the fashion industry is also using ugly models, another inversion. That's a pretty good point. And Aleister Crowley, when he was doing one of his workings, he actually put in a advertisement into the paper for ugly women. He wanted the worst. He wanted the like hunchback, deformed. I can't remember his his ad specifically, but it was pretty bad. Like, are you like literally a goblin? I want to work with you and do sex rituals with you. Because what was that called? They were trying to do that. I just talked about this. The working where you have to do things that disgust you to get over it and like transcend. It'll pop back in my head. If anybody knows what I'm talking about, let me know. So for people who are into these things, the occult, the magic, the sorcery, which is a lot more than you think, by the way, what they do is communicate by symbols. So the symbols are often called seals or signatures, and they were thought to be cross stitches in the fabric of reality. They could be manipulated or activated like elements or molecules in chemistry to form new compounds of possibility. Who's the best? Carl Jung, classic man and his symbols. Does Jordan Peterson talk about symbols? Not really. Jordan Maxwell does. So magic a lot of times works in the language of symbology, and me and BLA are going to do The Lost Symbol by Dan Brown. But the language of symbols works on the subconscious level of the mind, as they are easy to grasp and meditate upon, and they don't have a they can have multiple meanings, right? So the only magically effective symbols are those charged with the vitality of the subconscious, and the subconscious mind is the repository of all of these ideas. This is where the sorcerer can do his best sorcery by manipulating you on the subconscious level. So people and even animals can respond to symbols as if they were the objects they represent. That's why we do so much work just talking about symbols. Because there's no set interpretation for any symbol, but when it's constantly used in the same way, it cements it, like the upside down pentagram, right? So Carl Jung would say, cultural symbols have been used to express eternal truths and that are still used in many religions. Such cultural symbols nevertheless retain much of their spell. One is aware that they can evoke a deep emotional response in some individuals, and the psychic charge makes them function in such a way as prejudices, such tendencies to form an ever-present and potentially destructive shadow to our conscious mind. Our times have demonstrated what it means for the gates of the underworld to be opened, things whose enormity nobody could have imagined in this idyllic harmlessness of the first decade of our century have happened and turned the world upside down. Ever since, the world has remained in a state of schizophrenia. So even Carl Jung could see that people are being manipulated subconsciously by symbols. And that quote was from Man and His Symbols. So this is the basis of magical suggestion, is that a thought generated from a sigil or a symbol may be projected into a person's aura and there breed further thoughts. I know this is kind of woo-woo head stuff, but it all makes sense once your subconscious mind has had a chance to deliberate on it a little bit. So here the target may not be aware of what the symbols mean, or even the thought that is born within him that is not his own. What is that movie with the tulpas? It was a Russian movie, and you could see how all of the fast food chains had these like tulpas or demons or thought forms just hanging over them from the energy from everybody buying these things. Anybody know what I'm talking about in the chat? Okay, Bobby C, $10. I have a question. How much of this symbolism is intentional and how much is ignorance? How can you delineate those using it for subversive purposes and those that just think it looks cool? That's a really good question. So I would say the bigger the corporation, the more thought is going to be put into the corporate logo. I mean, if you've ever seen that old breakdown of the Pepsi logo, how they spent $1 million for this company to make that the red and blue ball with the white swoosh in it. I mean, it is like a 10-page report on symbols and how they work on your subconscious mind. So look up the Pepsi report for that. So, yeah, some people could just be copying bigger names that have made these symbols popular. Not everybody who thinks that, not every goth teenager who thinks pentagrams are cool is a evil sorcerer, but I think the more money behind it, the more power behind it, the bigger and more established the corporation is that puts out these symbols, they're gonna know about this stuff. They're gonna know what they're doing. Yeah, look up the Pepsi logo. It was like $1 million thing just to come up with that stupid ball. The red-blue Pokemon ball. So, symbols, Man and His Symbol. It's Carl Jung, your shadow side. So Manly P. Hall would say that symbols are oracular forms, mysterious patterns creating vortices in the substance of the invisible world. They are centers of a mighty force, figures pregnant with an awful power, which when properly fashioned loose fiery whirlwinds upon the earth. So where do we get our symbols, our cultural things that hold us together? The symbols that we trust, the symbols that we don't trust. One of those places would be ye old Tavistock Institute. Remember that? If you haven't read Tavistock Institute, that is a good place to start. That's a conspiracy classic. This is the modern science of the mass manipulation of public opinion. This is the nephew of Sigmund Freud, Edward Bernays. This is the British counterpart to that propaganda. And few people have even heard of this thing called the mother of all think tanks, the Tavistock Institute. So this is the world's premier firm in brainwashing and social engineering. In 1921, the Duke of Bedford, Marquis of Tavistock, donated a building to study the effect of shell shock on British soldiers who survived World War I. Its purpose was to establish the breaking point of men under stress. So this is the beginning of our modern Western understanding of post-traumatic stress disorder, which they used to call shell shock, or another name they would call it nostalgia. That's not a very good definition of it, but yeah, trauma and its effects on the brain. Trauma-based mind control is what we're getting at. So during World War II, it was the headquarters of the British Army's Psychological Warfare Bureau, and through MI6, it dictated the policy to the United States in matters of psychological warfare. And guess who else was involved in psychological warfare? Michael Aquino wrote a book, Psyop and Mind War, The Psychology of Victory, I think was his paper on that. So Tavistock is a globally active council that has influenced just about every social and political movement of note throughout much of the world for the past 50 years. Without Tavistock Institute, there would have been no world wars. They were partially funded by the Rockefeller and the Rothschild families, and their aim was to manipulate society through social crisis. So there is your trauma. And when you have been through a trauma, you are literally experiencing a form of brain damage where you are highly suggestible, especially if that person is offering you some kind of safety. So the times are being made to change according to a very carefully laid out Tavistock and other think tank formulas. Obviously, the UN is a part of this also. It is generally seen as the nerve center for global manipulation, and Hollywood is just one arm of that Tavistock Institute. So they are closely affiliated with Stanford, MIT, and NASA. It is headquartered in London. It operates a $6 billion a year network of foundations in the US. This book was written in 2010, so it's probably even more than that. Psyop to Mind War, I think it's called, Technoir. Technographics says the movie Mother would tie in well with this topic. Yeah, was that Jennifer Lawrence? I think I saw that a long time ago, and that's like a really disturbing one, especially at the end. That was one of those like you only watch once and like try to forget it. It's kind of like Hereditary. Michael Aquino looked like an elven Cabbage Patch. Totally! He did. He even had like the eyebrows that stick up, but he had like a weird baby face. That is so funny. What are you talking about? Oh, Tavistock. Okay. So there are 10 major institutions under its direct control. It has 400 subsidiaries and 3,000 study groups and think tanks, which specialize in organizational behavior, political science, psychoanalysis, psychology, and sociology. So Tavistock's pioneer work in behavioral science along Freudian lines of controlling humans established it as the world's center of cultural ideology. So I want to say most of your movements, your bowel movement, your political movements, your social movements, your BLMs and your stuff like that, all of that is going to come from places like Tavistock Institute. They developed the mass brainwashing techniques, which were first used experimentally on prisoners of war in Korea, and its experiments in crowd control methods have been used to American public, on American public to this day. So, all Tavistock Foundation techniques have a single goal: to break down the psychological strength of the individual and render him helpless to oppose the dictators of the New World Order. Yes, the political bowel movements of our time, most of those come from high up think tanks. They are not grassroots revolutions by good people. So any technique that helps you break down the family unit and the family principles of religion, honor, patriotism, chaste sexual behavior, all of these are used by the Tavistock as weapons of crowd control. The Institute has developed such power in the world that hardly anyone achieves prominence in their field unless they have been trained in behavioral sciences at Tavistock or one of its subsidiaries. Another quote by a Talbot Mundy says, "The most dangerous of all sciences is that of molding mass opinion, because it would enable anyone to govern the whole world." So this is what we're talking about. Not just invoking ghoulies, but hard scientific crowd control, mind control, population control, birth control. All of these methods of controlling are under this umbrella of sorcery. So we've got a fun crowd on an afternoon. I'm so happy that you guys all turned out. Jethro, Sabrina, Tech Noir, Crispy, Slow Boy. If we had Rachel and BLA, it would be, I think, all of you. I don't know. So let's talk about behavior for a second. Because an effective sorcerer, somebody who's going to want to control people, is also going to be a good behaviorist. And the best example I have seen recently is ye old Tater Tot Brothers, and the way that they use psychology on young people, especially young men, impressionable people, people who feel disenfranchised, people who feel powerless. Because if you can take a group that feels powerless, like young men, like incels or red pills or disenfranchised young men, and if you can give them somebody to hate, if you can give them somebody to look down on, if you can give them somebody who they feel that they can exercise a modicum of control over, then you can empty their pockets. Okay? This is not about saving young men from women. This is about getting as much money as possible and controlling minds. And Tater Tot also employs neurolinguistic programming. He has a full-time hypnotist, behaviorist called Iggy Samowise who works for him. I know I've talked about this in the past. He's got 2 girls who work for him who are also involved in that lawsuit. But he knows what he's doing. He's using the hand signs. He's using the symbols. He's using all of these behavioral, psychological techniques, and it works like gangbusters. Because in order to manipulate someone, you must learn how to control their emotional state and response. So he uses problem, reaction, solution also. All women are 304s. Therefore, it is your right to PAMP them out and see if you can make them work for you. So one way to control people's emotional state and response is to keep people thinking with our complex brain. Now we're getting into some David Icke territory. You've got 3 brains, right? You've got your reptilian brain, your mammalian brain, and your neocortex, which is the part that gets attacked when you become addicted to corn. So Kotel Patrick last night was talking about how the epidemic of corn is going to lead to the rise of these synthetic mates, all by design, because the what happens to your brain when you do that is you are putting Swiss cheese holes right in your frontal lobe, in your neocortex, where empathy, conscience, kindness, all of the higher faculties, all your superego brain is right here. And when you are cooming with the computer, you're just eating holes right into your neocortex. So if you can get people just thinking with their R complex, their reptilian brain, that is the first component of this behavior modification, this mind control, right? So the R complex, you guys probably know this, but it's responsible for rage, fight or flight, hunger, sexuality. This is where your ritualistic behavior comes from too. It can override the more functional, rational aspects of the brain. It's like a primitive part of your brain. This is why sex and violence sell so well. The reptilian brain is in a constant state of agitation and hypervigilance to threat. So this is where your what takes over when you feel frightened. And they want to keep people in these lower states of consciousness and making decisions from their base level of thinking, right? Survival, fight or flight. So this is why we're bombarded daily with negative messages that frighten us. It suspends our conscious processing and keeps our subconscious mind open to suggestive programming. Right? If you cannot throw some donuts in my mouth, just put some in the chat because I like to see them. I put the donut chat link right there 2 times. And we'll check if we have any donuts for songs. Oh yeah, we got $5. The Putnams. Thanks for the great info as always. The chat is so nice too. I love the chat. I love all you guys. Heidi, $10. Thank you for sharing your insights. God bless you and Jay. God bless you too. I'm having fun on this afternoon stream. And we're talking about sorcery and robots. The rise of the sex machines. I'm just a love machine. And I ain't working for nobody but you. And how do they get us, they, as in the sorcerers, bind our will and subject it to their own will, which is against God's will? How do we get out of this? Let's see. So, talking about the reptilian brain, at least 5 human behaviors originate in the reptilian brain. They find expression in obsessive compulsive behavior, personal day-to-day rituals and superstitious acts, slavish conformance to old ways of doing things, ceremonial reenactments, obeisance to precedent, as in legal, religious, cultural, and all manner of deceptions. So that's Skip Largent, somebody who knows about brains, talking about reptilian brain. Oh, there was a funny song. Okay, so you know Greg, who does those like special reports for InfoWars? I'm Greg Reese. So way back in the day, back in like 2010, they were doing music videos that were really funny, actually. They were like Andy Samberg level comedy music videos, and the music was good too. And they actually did a video called Reptilian Brain. So if you want to look that up, it's called Flo White, Reptilian Brain. Greg Reese was one of the band members. We were actually in one of his videos about They Live. So if Flo White is still on YouTube, please go check them out and give them a thumbs up and watch that music video called Reptilian Brain. So today, Hollywood is the new religion. The most powerful sorcerers appeal to our reptilian brain, and they wield their wand through Hollywood. The film industry is the most prolific culture creator on the planet today. I don't think anyone can argue the impact that movies have had on our planet in the 20th century. And I actually talk a lot about that in our live talk when we talk about 2001: A Space Odyssey and what the big black obelisk, not obelisk, the rectangle, what's it called, of 2001: Space Odyssey. Anyways, how that is a symbol for something that is introduced that forms an evolutionary leap in population. So, in the ancient days, druid magicians would use the branches of the holly tree, and that's where Hollywood comes from, to make their magic wands. So hollies were thought to have supernatural powers. They were a symbol of death and resurrection. They were a symbol of eternal life and fertility, going all the way back to Babylon, because the holly does not die in the wintertime unless it gets really cold. My holly dropped all its leaves, but it didn't die. And the wand itself is a symbol of the will and also of the phallus. So do you remember a couple live streams ago, we were talking about witchcraft and how magic and witchcraft and Hogwarts and all of this stuff that you introduce to children is inherently sexual. So as soon as you put that wand in their hand, you are putting a phallus in their hand. And this is what they are supposed to learn when they grow up, is that their magic comes from the generative principle, right? So holly's also used in Wicca. The holly king in the pagan tradition is the god of the dark half of the year, and the oak king is the god of the light half of the year, and they do battles. And there was a funny scene. Oh, welcome, Clint Eastwood, Third World Assassin. The monolith, the symbol of the lost phallus of Osiris, the Pan rabbit hole you got me in, has been having me hitting the books hard. Good. Hey, so you sent me something about Pan, and I couldn't find it in the text messages. So if you could direct me to that or pop it in here, that would be so helpful. But welcome, Clint, and we are on a roll. Talking about Hollywood, the new religion, how the holly is a magic wood. So for many people, spirituality has been usurped and replaced by Hollywood, and this process has many examples throughout history. So, in Nazi Germany, they would have youth film hours to replace Sunday school. For more than a century after Henry VIII broke with the Church of Rome, no churches were built in England. Instead, they built theaters. So this was the golden age of theater. And the English theater became a new species of church or temple, mass gathering place where you are taught and programmed just like a mystery school. So within these theaters, the rites and the mysteries of magic were performed for the public. And then also, these playhouses relate to astrological specifications, creating a hermetic microcosm. So a theater such as the Globe of Shakespeare became a magical, a cosmic, a religious place of worship. Rachel's here. What's up, Rachel? Everyone's talking about my sweater. That's so funny. Thank you. Yes, Rachel says, cute sweater, Janie. Thank you. I got it from, what's it called? Marine Layer in Nashville. So if you like it, that's where you can get one. So part of my live talk that we do, we talk about how the modern concept of theater originated in the divine dramas staged at religious festivals in ancient Greece, ancient Babylon, Mesopotamia, Sumer, all these places. These performances were more than play acting, and these actors were seen as living embodiments of the gods and goddesses they portrayed, and also as channels or conduits or mediums for the god's power. And this is why we follow the stars, because we've always used stars as a sort of navigation tool. And that's why we are, in our epigenetic memory, we are pre-programmed to look up to the stars, and now we see the stars of Hollywood, and we do the same thing. My sweater is the star today. That's so funny. Jamie's sweater is multi-dimensional. I see secret ermine pattern in the garment known only to select few. Exactly. That is the esoteric sweater. Esoteric sweater. So funny. Welcome, welcome. We've got a bunch of people on this afternoon. We've got a party. Sabrina, Clint, Jethro, Rachel, Tech Noir, Dr. Crispy, Slowboy, everybody. We're talking about Sorcerers. And how about Nickelodeon? Want to talk about Nick. Remember that from when we were kids? Nickelodeon. It's kind of grim. So, going back in time, we have the theater, the cinema, and we have the theater. And then we have the plays, the ancient mystery plays. And all leading up to being programmed by the big black monolith. That's what it's called. The monolith is the movie screen. And even Kubrick would say that that the black monolith of 2001 that looks like this, but when you turn it on its side, it is the theater screen, the silver screen, right? But he wanted to kind of hide that, so he made it a big black stone instead of an actual movie screen. And two instances I can think of being programmed by movie screens was the story from Scientology where Xenu puts all of the souls in the volcano and takes their spirits and puts them in a movie theater and reprograms them, and then they cling on to caveman, that old story of Scientology. And also I found that in the Mormon temple you have something called the endowment film, which you can get on YouTube, and I think me and Jay are gonna go over this because it was so goofy. It's like the secret movie that you're allowed to watch when you join the Mormon church that tells you like the story of creation and Adam and Eve and Lucifer and the fall, and it's just a movie. It's just like a secret movie that you watch, and then they tell you the handshakes and all of the passcodes and give you something called the handshake of the erotic priesthood. I don't know. It's getting weird. But I think me and Jay are going to cover that, the endowment movie in the near future because it just looks so goofy. Yes, John Anon. I like that name. John Anon says the original Nickelodeon were 5-cent X-rated peep shows. Exactly. Precursor to movies. So I have one picture of a peep show girl at the Nickelodeon, and that is spot on what we're going to be talking about, because the history of the movie industry begins not in Hollywood but in New Jersey. 1888, with the invention of the kinetograph, which was a motion picture camera, and then the kinetoscope, which was a peephole motion picture viewer, invented by none other than the Wizard of Menlo Park, Thomas Edison. So actually the birthplace of movies was New Jersey, not Hollywood. And it was where America's first motion picture industry was based for more than a decade. Edison was the premier maker and distributor of esoteric silent motion picture studies. He felt that producing wholesome films, they were helping to preserve the nation's morals. Then Seeing the growing popularity of a new form of entertainment called movies, a Jewish immigrant named Carl Laemmle, who I think that's Paramount, right? And I never know if I'm saying that correctly. Carl, I want to say Laemmle, but I think it's Laemmle. L-A-M. How's it? Laemm. Yes. Production companies, Universal Pictures, Independent Movies. Who was Paramount? Anyways, he bought a Nickelodeon in 1906 and he opened the White Front Theater in Chicago. So the Nickelodeon was the first type of indoor exhibition space dedicated to showing projected motion pictures. The name derived from the cost of admission, which was a nickel, and the Greek word for theater, Odeon, which is, he's also a god too, Odeon. So, before Edison perfected his camera, other individuals had developed a system of rapidly moving cards which depicted short scenes. The pictograph system, as it was called, were movies of naked women or sex acts by couples. The earliest films had been shown in peep show machines or projected in vaudeville theaters as one of the acts. Nickelodeon's drastically altered film exhibition practices and the recreational habits of the American public. So this is the perfect thing to name a children's network, right? Nickelodeon, because they were peep shows. J.C. Owens says operating thetan is another word for master mason. Okay. Banhammer says the child's version of the Nickelodeon is the Viewmaster. Yeah, that little thing, remember where you put your eyeballs up to it and you go like that? And it, not naked ladies, but it used to be. So to exploit the pictograph market, Laemmle and his investors used their homes and buildings in New York to set up Nickelodeons. They turned their real estate into the means of making money in this early form of corn. Today, Nickelodeon is a popular kids network who is famous for sliming children. What? Are you guys picking up what I'm putting down? Nickelodeons were peep shows, and now it's a children's network that coons on kids. Right? Their corporate logo looks exactly like a splooge. And this is the system that spread from New York, and Carl Laemmle used them as a framework for organizing his own distribution system nationwide. So then by 1909, it had grown into the largest non-Edison film exchange in the country. Slowboy says, I love my Viewmaster so much, I bought one for my kids. It's a cute toy. Yeah. Super predatory indeed. Exactly. So then, to avoid paying royalty fees to Edison for his patented camera design, Laemmle reformed his company as Universal Studios and headed to California. Now, maybe he was involved in Paramount, because we took a tour of Paramount and I swear he was in the hall of like dudes. Clint says that producer was obsessed with the feet and getting the Nickelodeon kids to show their feet. Ew. Was that the one who was Jamie Spears' baby daddy? Yeah, Sabrina says, yes, the sliming of the kids. That has always bothered me. I thought if I have kids, they're not watching this trash. Little did I know how malign it was. Exactly. I was obsessed with Nickelodeon when I was a kid. That was my jam. I loved Are You Afraid of the Dark? Remember that? Ooh, I got a donut. Tio Andrea says, so sorry that I have to go. What small seed of knowledge would you send someone who is into fashion and work, Balenciaga favorite brand, in order to turn them around? She is Russian and hates orthodoxy. What small seed of knowledge? Well, if she didn't care about Balenciaga gate, I don't... if that's her favorite. I don't know what to do. You know what I would say? Somebody who loves clothes. Obviously, I am one of those people because of my cute sweater. But what we need to start doing is giving our money to brands that support natural clothing made from linen, cotton, leather, silk, wool. So we need to start, for our own health, trying to buy more natural fibers and getting away from polyester, rayon, viscose, and all of those recycled acrylics and stuff like that. I think that is a good place to start. Also, a lot of the dyes in clothes are toxic. There's a good book called To Die For, D-I-D-Y-E, about all of the toxic dyes in your clothes. I wanted to do a book report on that, but I just haven't had time. But yeah, I have been having a clothing revolution in my house, trying to get rid of all of the gross, nasty fibers and replace it with good things: cashmere, wool, cotton, silk. I can recommend a bunch of online places to shop if you like. I think Quince is like my number one online store right now for affordable natural fiber clothing. Kumlissa explains it all. Yeah, exactly. JC Owens says, I hated the kid game shows when I was a kid except for Hidden Temple, but that's because I like history and want to be like Indiana Jones. That one was hard, man. Hidden Temple, that one was like intimidating. I wanted to go on Double Dare because I thought that Mike Summers was the coolest grown-up that had ever lived. I thought he was so cool. I wanted to go on Double Dare. I thought I could win the goopy physical challenges. Yeah, Double Dare was my jam when I was a kid. Okay, where are we? California Universal Studios. So this migration west was partly to escape agents from Edison's motion picture patent company, but also it had to do with natural sunlight. So in New Jersey, in these old-timey cameras, they needed as much natural light as you could get, and the East Coast is a little more cloudy than the West Coast, so there was a exodus from New Jersey to Los Angeles, which had plenty of natural sunlight, lots of land lots for studios, a variety of outdoor settings, nice weather, good climate. It allowed for a year-round production of the ideal environment for making movies. So now you know, movies come from New Jersey, not Hollywood. So then Edison's trust in the federal government attempted to regulate the moral content of the new film industry on the West Coast, but the guiding hand of movie content was profit. And if you've all seen that movie Babylon, this is the time period that we're talking about right now, like the Wild West of movie creation, going from Nickelodeons to the film cameras that we know today. So Hollywood's early moguls, which they were Jewish, the 5 big production companies were Masons and Jewish. And I mean, there's a book called An Empire of Their Own, so don't come at me. Everyone knows this. Just go look up Hollywood, An Empire of Their Own, and you will see what I'm talking about. There was no, like, ratings. There was no parental guidance. There was no morality boards yet. So, unlike their early East Coast counterparts, the heads of Hollywood studios were less interested in artistic experimentation than profit, and that's what we were talking about: sex sells and violence sells. So they put on the screen what sold the most. The public was willing to pay to see films with sex and violence, and Hollywood was more than happy to make them. Who said that? Who said that? Walt Disney, Hollywood's Dark Prince. That's a quote from that. So, yeah, Edison, he wasn't a good guy either. I mean, he was the foil to Nikola Tesla, right? Edison was the one electrocuting elephants, and Tesla was the one trying to give us free energy. Television. Y'all want to hear the history of TV? Throw me some donuts if you want to hear about TV. We've got one more hour before I got to give up the studio for Jay and Tristan. It's going to be so funny. They're talking about twin flames tonight. If you throw a donut in my mouth, I will sing a song badly. And we shall continue on the history of television. I have a quote here from Eckhart Tolle. See, this was all zone theory days, so I was reading a lot of Eckhart Tolle. The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. But they do have some insights. So Eckhart Tolle says, although for long periods your mind may not be generating any thoughts, it has linked into the thought activity of the television show. It has linked with the TV version of the collective mind, and it is thinking its thoughts. Your mind is inactive only in the sense that it is not producing thoughts. It is, however, constantly absorbing thoughts and images that come through the TV screen. This induces a trance-like passive state of heightened susceptibility, not unlike hypnosis. So the TV is hypnotizing you. Anton LaVey said that the television is the satanic altar in the home, which has replaced Christianity. And nothing has done more to aid the sorcerer in his hypnotism, even more so than movies, because you can just sit in your coon room and watch TV. You could just never leave. At least to go to the theater, you used to have to get dressed and brush your teeth and put your shoes on and interact with other people to get your programming. But now you just switch it on, and you can see it's really sad, babies and elderly people get put in front of these tubes and zone out, right? Everybody has witnessed that. It is a domestic terrorist, in my opinion. The television is a little domestic one. And even the American Medical Association reports that the combined hours spent in front of a television or video screen is the single biggest chunk of time in the waking life of an American child. So, yeah. Like in the movie Idiocracy. Exactly. So one ad for a technology called Ultraviolet brags that you can take your programs with you wherever you go, from your DVD player to whatever portable media device you want. So your child never needs to tear his eyes away from the programming and interact with other humans. And isn't that a quinky dink? That it's called programming. And that's how you program a computer and how you program a person's biocomputer with the television program. I mean, there used to be times when a family traveling in a car might entertain themselves by talking, singing, or playing games. Now every kid has their own laptop, their own cell phone, their own DVD player in the back of the headrest. So the family members don't look to each other for entertainment anymore when there's a constant stream of media sources at their fingertips. And teachers nowadays are reporting that the iPad epidemic has ruined this generation of kids. So the iPad came out 10 years ago, and now iPad babies are 10 years old, and they show you if you tear the iPad out of their hand, then they just go berserk until you give it back, and they just put it right here, and they are plugged into the Borg. But the history of the invention of the television is weird, because The American inventor and television pioneer Philo Farnsworth said, "I know the secret of making the average American believe anything I want him to. Just let me control the television." So we are wired into our television sets. They have come to look at the images on the screen as reality. If you put something on TV, it most likely will become a reality. Just look at, Star Trek and all the things that they introduce that were from the imagination. They made it into a TV show or a movie, and then someone took that and they made it into a real thing. So when the world outside the television set contradicts the images, people start changing the world to make it more like what they see on TV. You lose your sense of what is being done to you, but your mind is being shaped and molded. When asked about his family's TV viewing habits, Farnsworth said, "There's nothing on it worthwhile, and we're not going to watch it in this household, and I don't want it in your intellectual diet." So even the creators of social media platforms won't even let their children interact with these things because they know how toxic they are, right? You've seen that panel where like Mark Zuckerberg and those guys are like, and Gil Bates says, yeah, my kids don't have iPads. They don't watch this stuff because it's bad. Sabrina Fair says, "Jane organizes big time clueless. My boss tells me how her kids cast spells in his room with his Harry Potter wand. Can't make this up." Yeah. And somebody reminded me last time, someone came to my chat that we met on our bus trip in 2012, and he took us and he's like, "You have to see this kids hotel called the Great Wolf Lodge." And we're like, "Okay, what can be so special about this?" And we go in, and the whole thing is set up like a magical quest that you have to go on, and you go to the gift shop and you have to buy a magic wand, and you have to decide if you're like a princess or a warlock or whatever, a fairy, and you get your wand, and then you go to these different prompts, cubicles on the wall, and you wave your magic wand, and it sends you on the adventure. So you're running around this hotel doing this magical adventure, all the while being programmed at Great Wolf Lodge. And the funny thing about what I remember about that day was we went into the arcade, and I'm like, dang, this is just like a casino. Like, this is a baby casino because it's all the flashing lights and the things dropping and the games. And so it's like you do your arcade, and then when you're old, you go to Vegas and you just like put your quarter in and sit and look at that thing. So it's really surreal to watch. So yeah, we talked about how Anton LaVey said that the TV was the satanic altar, but he also said that TV was responsible for creating a uniform society where individualism is stifled and the masses are programmed to march to whatever tune they're played. So he knew, he had a lot of insights into mass formation psychosis, but his answer was Satanism, unfortunately. His solution to conformity was aligning with the rebellious one. So when you watch TV, it induces low alpha waves in your brain. These are completely different than relaxed alpha states. They are states associated with suggestibility. Too much time spent in the low alpha wave state can cause unfocused daydreaming, inability to correctly perceive reality. The flicker rate of the television was specifically timed to match our alpha state. This is why people, especially children, tune out when the TV comes on. Their mouths drop open, eyes become glassy, and they can't hear anything you say to them. Researchers have said that watching television is similar to staring at a blank wall for several hours, and watching TV only trains your brain to watch more TV. In less than 1 minute of viewing, a person's brainwaves switch from beta brainwaves associated with active logical thought to primarily alpha waves. This trance states can last up to 45 minutes after the TV is turned off, and even longer when you've been watching HD. So why would the president mandate that all TVs must go into high definition? Like, that's what was a pressing problem of our time during the Obama administration, was that all TVs have to go to HD. You remember that? We had to all switch to HD because Obama said so. So, like, we can start talk about advertising too. I mean, you know, most of parts of the brain responsible for logical thought, they tune out during viewing. That's why they slide those commercials in there when you're suggestible. Advertisers had known about this for a long time. They know how to take advantage of the passive brain state in its hyper receptive state, ready to absorb suggestions within just a few seconds of the television being turned on. All advertisers have to do is flash a brand on the screen and attempt to make the viewer associate the product with something positive. Well, you all know this. I mean, everybody knows commercials and how they work and blah, blah, blah. But what you didn't know is that the invention of the cathode ray tube is really weird. So, classic magicians, they would call the spirit world the ether, right? And in the early 1870s, a British physicist named Sir William Crookes, who was a member of the Golden Dawn, which is a magical order, and president of the Society for Psychical Research, he believed that spirits of the ether were capable of moving around tiny particles. So during his inventions of devices to measure the existence of electrons, he invented the Crookes tube, which is the first cathode ray tube. So the invention of the TV was like an electronic Ouija board trying to get in contact with spirits on the other side. By firing electrons at glass covered in phosphorus, he was hoping that the spirits would arrange the particles on the screen to give visions of the other side. He experimented with projection by placing an object inside the tube and bombarding it with electrons to produce an image. He used the Maltese cross as the first image projected, which is a rich esoteric symbol used by the magicians, Kabbalists, Templars, and most famously NAZIS. So there you go. Trying to communicate with spirits of the ether. That's how we got TV. And that reminds me of freaking Poltergeist, right? They're here. Coming out of the TV. Black Mirror, exactly. Here's something creepy. Look at this cute guy. The television ghost. You see that right there? Television ghost was a horror television series that aired in New York from 1931 until 1933 on a station of the Columbia Broadcasting System. It is one of the first dramatic television series ever made, and each episode lasted for only 15 minutes. The only actor was George Kettling, who played a ghost, and his face painted white and a sheep wrapped around him who would tell scary stories in close-up. The premiere of the show was that the spirits of the victims of murder would tell the gory tale of their death. So, there is your old-timey Are You Afraid of the Dark television ghost. Any donuts for my Crookes tube? Yes. Sabrina says, thank you for the stream tonight. Always informative, always fun. Yvonne, thank you so much. Good friend of mine. I appreciate you coming and joining the mod squad. It's really fun when we get all of these people together. We are holding strong on a Wednesday afternoon. We've got about 40 more minutes to get through before I let Jay and Tristan take over. Let's see. We might have to do part 2 of Sorcerers and Robots just because there's so much stuff in here. We've covered Nickelodeons, we've covered Hollywood, the New Religion, Tavistock Institute, Aleister Crowley, Thelema, Sorcerer's Apprentice, Cultural Programming, Carl Jung, Aver's Pentagram, Ghoulies, pacts with the devil. It's on fire. It's a stream on fire, and I've got like 10 donuts from DuckDuckGo22. OMG, thank you so much. Oh, snap. So we talked about the stars a little bit. Hollywood has a foothold in the human being's natural instincts to follow the stars. So since the dawn of time, we've studied the stars for navigation, signs, seasons, and to keep time. Also, the astrology is a legitimate science. You know, the Magi visited Jesus. We observe the stars, but we don't worship them, right? We use them to calculate things, but they are not gods. They're just a natural phenomenon. So it's no coincidence that the magicians or magi of ancient Persia were called the stargazers. Stellar worship is one of the oldest forms of religion. Constellations were anthropomorphized and deified with elaborate myths involving their movements and relationships. Again, we worship God. We use the stars for science, right? Back then, each star was seen as the abode of some hero or god once incarnate on Earth. All mythologies find their explanation in the starry language. The rise and fall of empires and races of men are written in the stars. So, a lot of people want to throw out astrology. We don't do, horoscopes and future calculations, predictions, stuff like that. But we do use them for navigating and for signs and for seasons. So the pagans would look upon stars as living things, capable of influencing the destinies of individuals, of nations, of races. Albertus Magnus says the second great wisdom is the science and judgment of the stars, which provides a link between natural philosophy and metaphysics. No human science attains this ordering of the universe as perfectly as the judgments of the stars. So we talked kind of about the zodiac and astrology when we were doing the Freemason show with Clint. We're going to talk about the zodiac in Washington, D.C. with BLA very soon. Studying the stars is in our epigenetic memory. But today, everyone's looking at the stars in the tabloids and not in the sky. They are mindlessly obsessing over their every movement in the newspaper, magazine, and television shows. Hollywood is the new home of the heavenly bodies that man looks to for direction. So, let's do one more section. And then we're gonna watch Jay and Tristan. Not yet. Jim Ewing says the night sky used to be the best show. Man, can you imagine what the sky would look like without the light pollution that we have right now? It would look crazy. It probably does look like a bunch of wars and people riding across the sky. So, okay, let's talk about subliminal messages real fast because everyone loves those. And I have a couple illustrations of that. And then next time we'll get into the actual technology of mind control and sorcery applied. So subliminal messages are funny because once you see it, you can't unsee it. And this comes from a idea of how would I say that? Mesmerism? That's it. The origin of the word mesmerize or hypnotize comes from the work of Franz Anton Mesmer, who developed a theory under the influence of experiments in electricity and magnetism. So he is an early example of a psychologist as a magician, kind of dabbling in these things. Magnetism was big. It was fashionable in Paris during the 1780s. Mesmerism was often known as animal magnetism or electrobiology. So even though he didn't know what it was called, Mesmer was working with the psychological principle which we would today call the power of suggestion. Right? Even Clint agrees mesmerism is an interesting subject. Yeah. So he discovered that mesmerism or hypnotism, by having put his patient into a hypnotic trance, he could plant suggestions in the minds which produced dramatic changes in behavior. So we just talked about TV turning your brain waves from active to suggestible, basically a trance state. And this is where the suggestions are implanted. This is where advertisers spend so much money to get into your mind, to bypass your critical thinking and go directly to your subconscious. So successfully modifying human behavior requires brain manipulation techniques that, when expertly applied, become a soft form of mind control. So one of the most important methods for manipulating is the power of suggestion, and nowhere is this more exploited than advertising. It is the continued and repeated suggestion that first makes you believe and then eager to buy. Also, these are based on making you feel inadequate, making you feel ugly, making you feel poor, making you feel bad, making you feel like you are lacking. I mean, how can they sell you toothpaste if they don't make you scared that your breath is horrible, right? So the founders of all the great cult movements knew that the power of repeated suggestion, which is teachings that are hammered in, are the most successful. So whether we know it or not, we're all victims of this suggestion, and in many cases almost to the point of being hypnotized. In the course of a single day, we are saturated through radio, television, newspapers, magazines, just a bewildering amount of advertisements. I think of that episode of Futurama where he's like, they figured out how to put advertisements in your dreams. And he's like, well, back in my day, we had advertisements on TV and movies and buses and signs and windows and everywhere, but not in our dreams. But I think they are working on that. And they're working on these technologies that speak right into your brain without you knowing where the voice is coming from. We'll talk about that next time, probably. Heidi says, I use salt for toothpaste. Okay. A little baking soda, a little coconut oil. That would work better. Salt, coconut oil, baking soda, yeah. No fluoride. Remember, we're not brushing our teeth with fluoride. It's 2024. Come on, you guys. So subliminal messages is the sinister brother of the commercial. The most powerful forms of suggestion are below threshold, they call it, and they bypass the conscious mind. Most of what we perceive, we have no conscious awareness of having perceived it. Later, these images seep into the conscious mind as apparently the person's own thoughts, desires, and ideas. This is where also the algorithm comes in, where you think you're thinking your own thoughts and you're making your own critical conclusions based on, your sense data that you've collected, but it's not. It's your algorithm feeding you your own bias in a feedback loop. And we're going to talk about that with Benny tonight. So these seeds, they can be audio, they can be visual, or they can be both. Just go look at that. Who's that magician? He doesn't call himself a magician. He calls himself a English guy. He did a show called Trick or Treat. But he proves how powerful this is. Like, just by placing certain things in certain places, he can get you to respond any way that he wanted because he set up the entire thing. Somebody look up who the British mentalist who did the show Trick or Treat. Can y'all do that for me? So these things get buried in your subconscious. Innocent things that you would otherwise not know about. It could be an image, a caption, but they're always placed into film at speeds too rapid to be registered by the eye. They did outlaw this at one time. So these messages work with the effect of hypnotic suggestions. Subliminals allow the ability of media to manipulate people to produce deep, visceral responses. Darren Brown, that's it. If you don't believe what I'm saying and how suggestible people are just on a day-to-day basis, go watch Trick or Treat by Darren Brown or any one of his specials, and you can see how easy it is to convince people to think what you want them to think and make them think that it's their own thought. Spam Darren in the chat. Okay, since we're talking about teeth, I found this cool new product, Guru Nanda coconut oil pulling and mint. It's been really good. Try that one out for teeth. So in 1919, Dr. Potzel, an Austrian neurologist, published a paper describing his experiments with the tachyoscope, a viewing box into which the subject looks at an image that is exposed for a small fraction of a second. In the experiment, Potzel required the subjects to draw a picture of what they consciously remembered about what they had seen. He later had them make drawings of the dreams they had after viewing the tachyoscope pictures. It was shown unmistakably that the details of the picture, which had not been in the first drawing, provided material for the construction of the dream. The conscious mind forgot the details, but all the information was stored instantly for the subconscious to bring out later during sleep. So here I have these examples of subliminal messages. I mean, there's tons of them, but like, here's Coke. And they're usually dirty too, because like I was talking about before, the reptilian mind, what does it want? Food, sex, violence, sleep, security, all the snaky things. So there's a subliminal message in Coke. That's even an Illuminati card. You've got a weird subliminal ride on Donald Duck. And Disney is notorious for this. I mean, I'm sure you've all seen the smoke in The Lion King, or the dust, and it says sex, and the part in The Rescuers where there's a naked lady in the window. All of these are snuck in there. They bypass our conscious mind, but they are stuck in the subconscious, where all of the ghoulies come out, according to Jordan Peterson. If you don't do your shadow work, do your shadow work. Now we're all talking about teeth. That's so funny. Oil pulling is when you just like get some coconut oil and you hold it in your mouth, you melt it in your mouth, and keep it in there for like 5 minutes, and you just swish it all around and spit it out. And the best brand of oil for oil pulling is called Guru Nanda coconut and mint. I also like to add a little clove in there too. That's good for your teeth. If you have dental problems, go ahead and try the oil pulling. Yes, Little Mermaid. Remember Little Mermaid had that phallus in the castle on the cover of their VHS box? So yeah, Disney is notorious for subliminal messages, and the first public application of this scientific discovery was made in 1956 when a special projector was installed in a New Jersey movie theater by a firm called Subliminal Projection Company. For 6 weeks, they flashed the words, "Drink Coca-Cola," and "Hungry, eat popcorn," across the screen every 5 seconds at the subliminal level of 1/3000th of a second. After they did this, sales reportedly increased by over 50%. It was not long until legislators in Washington, D.C., along with the FCC and the CIA, became interested with this new form of advertisement. Due to their unpopularity with the public, companies such as Vickery's Subliminal Projection Company soon went out of business. The FCC eventually sent out a public service announcement stating that all uses of subliminal messages would only be used in the best interest of the public, and if used, they would be highly regulated. Yeah. I totally believe that they are just used and regulated for our best interest, right? Dr. Crispy just sucks a clove every now and then. Okay, yeah, that works too. Sucking on cloves. Maria said, "Ban, so my tooth that hurts can be healed." Yes, it can. And don't ever get root canals. I heard those are terrible. Just get it pulled out. Yeah, so we were talking about Trick or Treat by Darren Brown. He makes a living saying just how well these techniques work on us. In shows like Mind Control and Trick or Treat, he uses hypnosis, neurolinguistic programming, and subliminal messages to prove that you can quite easily get someone to suspend their free will and do something that they would otherwise object to. I mean, he even had somebody like fake kill someone. Like he convinced them to assassinate someone just by subliminal messages. So the most obvious hidden messages that are easy to recognize obviously are sexual. The simple 3-letter symbol, usually invisible to consciousness, appears instantly perceivable at the unconscious level. The word sex is spelled out in the dust in the movie Lion King, and in Rapunzel's hair, in the ad for the movie Tangled, and in countless other places, but many times the overt message in the movie is just as perverted, right? We're looking for secret sex in the dust when the whole movie is about degeneracy. It's funny. Also, the word sex is frequently hidden in political propaganda. In 1976, a congressional election campaign in Virginia's 10th district, sexual embeds were discovered in the campaign literature of all candidates except one who could not afford to hire an advertising agency. Subliminal stimuli probably account for much of the behavior we see in culture today. Sexual symbolism and metaphor in advertising is easily recognized to the point of cliche, but it continues to be exploited because it still works. You might not think a hidden penis will get you to buy a Coke, but it can surely give you a glimpse into the advertiser's psyche. So that's true, right? So Dr. David Kretsch of UC Berkeley, 1968, says, "I foresee a time when we shall have the means and therefore inevitably the temptation to manipulate the behavior and intellectual functioning of all people through environmental and biochemical manipulation of the brain." So that is a taste into next time we get together talking about sorcery. We're going to talk about technology, mind control, pharmaceuticals, more magic, and maybe we'll get into psychology incorporated. So now is your time. Say your last chats. Give your last donuts. Let me look over here, see if I got any. If you can't afford a federal donut, just give me a pink donut in the chat. Got something. Moldy Apple, what's up, Moldy? I'm glad you made it. $11 says, ask Crispy what his least favorite song is and then sing that. Okay. Dr. Crispy Rothschild, what is your least favorite song? And then I will sing that. Part 3, gives $5, 5 donuts, and says, "Have a good day, Jamie." Thank you. I will. I am having a good day. I'm having fun. We've been going for about 2.5 hours, all talking about sorcery and mind control and movies, television, subliminal messages, Nickelodeon, Aleister Crowley, pentagrams. I think that is a pretty good class. Thank you everybody for coming. Jethro, Sabrina, Rachel, Clint, Dr. Crispy. Did you find out what your least favorite song was? I can't tell. Tell me next time. Stay tuned for Jay and Tristan coming up in 30 minutes. And then right after that is going to be a premiere of me and Benny Wills talking about what happened to the Truth Movement. And it's also featuring this very same sweater. So don't miss that. And make sure to look at my channel on Rockfin. That's where we get really deep, dark defense against the dark arts. And thank you all so much for coming. And I love you guys. Bye.